In our latest episode, we're excited to speak about medium voltage solutions and technical expertise with Tom Colledge, our sales director and MV specialist. So Tom, I'm glad to have you here today because you're a hard man to pin down, given you're always busy on the phone or on the road up and down the UK speaking to or visiting E-Tech customers. To kick things off, what I want to do is go right back to the beginning. Tell us, how did your journey in the electrical industry start? Was there something specific that sparked your interest in the field?
Yeah, so not particularly. I sort of fell into this industry a little bit. So post-grad university, came out with a degree in business and marketing. I didn't really have a specific industry in mind or career really. But in 2006, I started with a company called Kingsmill, who were earthing and lining manufacturer. I knew the guy that ran it, and he was looking for a postgrad to come in and work for them. So sort of suited us both. And yeah, so that was my first real proper role. I was there 8 years. They specifically looking after wholesaler. That was their route to market.
Yeah.
So like Edmonton's, your cities, people like that. And then towards the end of my tenure there, because I was in sales, I was like internal sales and sales executive. I went into a BDM role, business development manager role, and we started expanding out our customer base. So we were looking at dealing directly with electrical contractors and lighting and protection installers as well, which is great. So I got a bit more hands-on experience with end user contractor. So yeah, from that point on, in 2014 I joined a power cable accessory distributor. So obviously I've gone from a manufacturer to a distributor, so a bit of a learning curve there, and that's where I was sort of properly introduced to LV and MV markets. And yeah, I was also there for 8 years in a sort of BDM regional sales manager role. And then from there, obviously I joined E-Tech in present day, February 2022. So we're just coming up to 3 years with E-Tech now in sales director role.
So you've had many years within this industry now, and I know your official position title with us is sales director, but we like calling you our MV specialist here at E-Tech. Now I see in front of you you've got 2 copies of 2 different E-Tech brochures, including our new MV brochure there that we launched this year. I know you're really proud of it. Could you quickly walk us through what's inside and what your customers expect when they open it?
So about 12 months ago we decided to do a short form catalogue. So it just covers our sort of product supply, our scope of supply if you like, just so people can understand what's within our product range. I did find, especially when I first started E-Tech, a lot of customers were unaware of our sort of broad variety of products that we do offer to market. So, but from that, the MV catalogue was born. So, you know, in the short form catalogue, there is a sort of nod to the MV, but without any specific information. So I thought it was important, especially for our sector, to have a more specific catalogue just for the medium voltage products, that's 6.6 up to 42 kV.
And I know inside we have everything you can think of, data tables, there's QR codes linking to the products on our website.
And obviously we do a really good job of making sure the information within the catalogue is up to date and correct, and the information likewise replicated on the website is also up to date. You know, you do get quite a few changes from manufacturers in terms of information, so it's important to keep the information updated, and obviously the QR code is a good way of doing that. I'm old school. I like a hard form catalogue on my desk. I know a lot of people within our industry do, especially buyers or contractors. Obviously if you're working out on site, you're not always going to have access to a laptop or even Wi-Fi potentially. So having this on your van or wherever you're working on site, something to refer to. We've actually put a lot of information in here. The information I think is going to be really helpful is information relating to the cable data. So we've got a lot of cable data for the types of cable that we sell products for. Things like diameters and insulation diameters as well, which is going to be really handy for people, especially when they're just tendering. They just want some quick information. So yeah.
Yeah, I mean, can you estimate how many of these things you've actually given out over the years? I can only imagine how full your car boot must be.
Yeah, I've got quite a few hundred copies. It is a relatively new copy, so you know, I prefer to hand these in person, but we will be sending these out to various people. But obviously, it is something that I hand out when I see people, when I do site visits and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's going to be a great addition to our offering, really, to the end user.
Very good, very good. And like Tom says you can download a digital copy of our new MV catalogue via the E-Tech website right now, or alternatively, if you're old school like Tom, you can request a hard copy by emailing sales@etechcomponents.com. So you mentioned customers a few times there.
Yeah.
As you rightly pointed out, customers are undeniably the focal point of E-Tech. I want to know, Tom, can you give us a standout example of where E-Tech provided a medium voltage solution that really made a difference to a customer?
So something that really stands out for me would be related to distance travelled.
Yeah.
So I had a particular customer who'd undertaken some earthing works for a particular project. I think it was solar related.
Yeah.
And this particular customer, the design spec had slightly changed, and the client wanted to go down the exothermic welding route.
Yeah. And
this particular contractor had not dealt with that before.
Yeah.
It's a relatively straightforward process, but it's still important to have an element of familiarisation. And to be fair, the client, also agreed that it would be good for them to have a bit more knowledge on the products and a bit of a demonstration, which we were happy to do. Yeah. Obviously, from our perspective, we were happy to, because the client was going to procure the material from us, we were happy to give that demonstration, FOC, no charge for anything there. But it did involve me travelling up to Glasgow.
Yeah. And I know you're based in the Midlands.
I'm based in the Midlands. I live near Nottingham, so not an issue. I thought it was going to be a nice little hotel stay, but we hadn't picked it, but the client, it just happened to be a week when there was a summit on in Scotland, so I couldn't get a hotel anywhere, so I had to get up very early, travel, do the demo, and travel back in a day, which wasn't ideal, but again, customer comes first. That's what they needed to keep on programme, so we were more than happy to assist on that occasion. So sort of just demonstrates there's a commitment from us. Mm-hmm. If a customer has a problem or it's looking at a solution for them. So
Glasgow and back in a day, not for the faint-hearted, but as I say, customers, that leads me nicely to our next section, where I really want to help our customers understand the main causes of cable joint failures. In your experience, what are the most common reasons these failures occur?
Well, unfortunately, one of the main reasons is going to be installation error. Number of reasons here. Obviously, you're following a set of instructions as a jointer. Mm-hmm. You've got a lot of stripping to do there. There's going to be a lot of measurements and stuff that you have to make and stuff like that. So one of the biggest reasons usually is going to be jointer error, just because a lot of the manufacturers these days do sort of mitigate themselves by testing a lot of their equipment before it leaves the factory.
Sure, yeah.
So it kind of does put the onus a lot more on the installation of it. If the instruction isn't adhered to fully, then there's going to be issues. Obviously, the terminations these days are a lot more forgiving, so sometimes these issues don't arise quickly at all. It can be months or even possibly years until you're going to get a failure. But eventually there would be a failure.
I know we've got Nexon's Euromold separable connectors here. You say they're more forgiving nowadays. And Tom's right. I mean, improper installation, the consequences can be devastating. In a previous Ask E-Tech episode we ran with Paul Forrester, our operations director, we were talking about the Grenfell Tower incident, how devastating that was. I mean, you really need to, as a jointer, follow the manufacturer's instructions to the letter. Right?
Yeah. A good example here, Taylor, we've got, this was actually my test piece from the Nexon's course. I did competency. So I had to strip the cable and terminate, and then the termination was tested, and it has to meet strict, stringent parameters within the testing to get a pass.
Yeah.
Luckily for me, I got a pass. I think my first attempt was a fail. There's some contamination within the boot. I've not cleaned it out properly.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it does highlight how important it is to follow those instructions.
You said there, contamination. I know a lot of our customers ask us this at E-Tech. Dirt, moisture. What are the kind of impacts that contamination has on cable joints?
Potentially lead to a failure.
Yeah.
Obviously, you know, this piece was done in up at Normanton.
Yeah. Indoor
In a nice, lovely, air-conditioned industrial unit.
Yeah.
Obviously, the guys that we deal are working in all manner of environment. A classic example would be a solar PV farm.
Yeah.
You know, depends on the time of the year.
Yeah.
They might be knee deep in mud.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously, again, contamination is a potential reason for failure. Again, following the jointing instructions, it will tell you and instruct you on how to mitigate that.
Yeah, very interesting. So you spoke there about contamination, dirt and moisture. Tell us, what are some of the other major reasons for cable joint failure? I know there's application that you want to speak about too.
Obviously, it's good that you mentioned ingress there as well, because water ingress is always going to be a big contributor to. And again, it kind of all relates to application.
Yeah.
So, you know, you want to be ensuring that the termination or joint that you've selected for your cable is appropriate and is correct.
Yeah.
The voltage level is correct. The type of cable that is going to be installed on matches.
Yeah.
The jointing instruction matches. You know, different cables have different stripping dimensions on them depending on what kind of cable they are. So again, making sure that the instruction in the kit is correct.
Yeah.
As per the cable that you're installing. Environment, that's always going to be an issue. You know, if you're working near the coast, it's going to be a factor.
Yeah. Sea salt and kind of where the
exactly. Sort of environmental factors. Yeah. You've also got even indoor, outdoor. You know, what's the application? If it's in a cable box, it's going to be indoor.
Yeah.
You know, if it's not, it'll be outdoor. But again, the kit will have certain things in it to make sure that it conforms to outdoor application. You know, you might get some extra water sealer mastic or something like that. So, application is going to have a huge play. So, before you get to the installation stage, obviously, it's making sure that you've been thorough and the correct terminations and joints have been picked for application.
So you said there, Tom, about improper installation, environmental factors, and application. What about voltage? How can that cause cable joint failure? Yeah,
so all the cables that have insulation on them. For example, a lot of cables that a lot of people will see in our industry, XLPE, 33 kV, 8mm thick insulation generally. Yeah. That insulation thickness is designed to absorb a certain level of voltage input. So again, it's making sure that the joint and termination that you're installing is suitable for the cable voltage levels and system voltage levels. Often we get people that have got a cable, say 33 kV, the system's actually running at a lower voltage, but will always match with a cable. Yeah. That's to do with sizing as well, because obviously a lot of these joints and terminations are done based on size, and that size relates to things like the insulation thickness. But no, it's important for us what we tend to do when we get an inquiry fresh is to ask for cable data sheets. Yeah. It's usually the starting point for us to understand the voltage levels and the type of cable that the client's working with, and from there we can establish what termination or joint is going to be best suited for their application.
Let's discuss external damage. How can companies really protect their installations from accidents or, say, construction activities that could cause harm? Yeah,
so one of the biggest issues that you'll find on site especially is going to be cables getting damaged, whether it's damaged when they're pulled in or they're damaged as they're going into the ground, especially underground cable. Yeah. or pre-existing cable that's already under the ground, but there's some civil works, or enabling works, whatever's being done. So a lot of the call outs we get are for joint damage from that. So it would be a case of a joint or a couple of joints and a piece of cable to section back in.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little bit easier, sometimes it's just a small outer sheave repair that we can obviously facilitate. But I think, like anything, we've spoken about this a lot. It's preemptive sort of working really, and
I know
sure
there's solutions say
exactly,
cable troughing and protective covers that as well.
Obviously, all within our product range. But obviously being able to identify that there are cables beneath when you dig in is going to be good. When you have done an installation, having that information on cable routes and stuff as part of your O&M manual and things like that is always going to be helpful for anybody coming back to do maintenance or anything like that, or some different works on site potentially after. So it's really a case of planning, and obviously there are products on the market to facilitate that as well.
As Tom was saying there, for our listeners, E-Tech stocks, supplies and specifies green trough by Trough Tech Systems. Solutions like these are exactly the kinds that we specialise in, so be sure to visit our website and send us any product inquiries you have today. We've moved upstairs to your office here at E-Tech HQ. We know that in the world of medium voltage, knowledge is power, literally and figuratively. Tell us, Tom, what role does customer education play in your process? I know you've done loads of tool demos for us over the years.
To be fair, I'd say 99% of customers know what they need. Sometimes they'll ask for advice when it comes to D&O specific termination joints, maybe just checking they've got the right joint or termination for the application. But generally, most people have a really good understanding of what they're going to need.
Yeah, so it's us got to just guide and advise. And
for sure. And if they're not sure, we're always open to site visit, check what equipment they've got, or check the equipment that they've got, cross-reference it with the manufacturer, make sure again that they're getting a suitable product for application. Although recently we've seen a lot of aluminium foil cables. They've become a lot more prevalent in our industry, especially data centre, European. And a lot of customers haven't dealt with these cables before. They seem to be an up-and-coming cable for sure. Like I say, definitely something we're seeing a lot of in data centre application in Europe. And there are ways of dealing with that particular type of cable. So that's been a learning curve for us, and obviously we've passed that information that we've learned technically on how to sort of cater for that type of cable. And we pass that on to the client.
Kind of a shared community of knowledge, so we're not gatekeeping, if it's helping people out in the field, that's what we're here for. 100%.
There's stuff I pick up, learn every day. There's a lot I don't know. I think the important thing for us at E-Tech is, if we're not sure, to engage with the manufacturer and make sure that we do understand it and we are giving the right information, because obviously, like we've said before, at these voltages you have to be really accurate with the information that you pass on to client.
You mentioned there about kind of training, shared knowledge, passing it on within the electrical community. When a customer wants some training from E-Tech, because we do offer it on a particular product, you said that aluminium foil cables there, a relatively new kind of cable type out there. When a customer wants some training, say on that, how do they go about requesting a demo? How would they organise it?
So there's two things to cover here. So you've got, for a really experienced jointer, for example, who is used to installing TE, terminations, for example, we would want to offer them possibly the Nexans as an alternative. And in that situation, for the level of experience that the jointer's at, it will be a case of just showing them. It'd be a product demonstration, really, because they understand the fundamentals and that they're not massively different in terms of in the way they're done. So from that perspective, a demo will be really good there for a really experienced jointer who just wants to see the
familiarisation.
More of a familiarisation of that particular product and how it might differ from something that they're used to. It might just be something basically like a slightly different change in mastic, or obviously the shrinking down of the outer jacket is going to be a little bit different than what you're used to, but it's obviously for them to decide if those differences are small enough to not really cause them an issue. But then you have full product familiarisation with the manufacturer, and obviously we can be the medium for arranging that training. Nexans, again, we sort of alluded to the competency course I've done previously with Nexans. I've done something similar with Fistra as well. And while I'm never going to be installing, for me it's really important that we understand the full process in doing a termination or joint, and what's involved. It really helps understand what a joint is talking about, especially when they're on the phone and you're not physically there with them. Being able to visualise, what they're going through and what they're trying to achieve is a lot easier when you've done the course yourself and you kind of understand a little bit better. And again, you don't fully understand the whole process for sure, but you've got a better understanding.
I know there's
a better opportunity to get to the sort of correct solution.
There's James Addy, John Reed. Those guys did a training at Nexans and Fistra.
The guys that most people will be familiar with, obviously great guys, really good understanding of what they do.
And you've done that training yourself.
Like I said, I've done the training myself. Again, not to ever install, but to understand better, so I can provide better information. Or when I'm going back to the manufacturer, again, if there's a query, I've got a better understanding because I've took the time to sort of learn a little bit more in depth what's involved in those processes.
As Tom mentioned, we want our listeners to know that while we are a distributor, we offer so much more than products in the MV world. We provide training, tool demos, seminars, and really focus on what we like to call end-to-end service. So when you buy a product from E-Tech, it's not the end of our relationship. In fact, it's just the beginning. So last but not least, I want to know, Tom, what are some of the technological advancements or trends in the MV space that you're most excited about?
The biggest impact, and I think the way the industry will go, will be related to smart joints and terminations. So I think a lot of things the way things are going to develop are going to be more related to sort of connectivity. So having that, being able to extract information from the system in a more efficient sort of smart way, which will be
digitalisation.
Essentially digitalisation. Essentially, I think that's definitely, because at the end of the day, with our product range, that in terms of involvement, you're always going to get maybe a new style of termination, and I've noticed a lot of termination joints are getting smaller. So obviously the technology is getting better, but I think one of the biggest changes will be connectivity and that sort of interface between taking information from the performance of the system and sort of interfacing that into the way in which you sort of work out how it's doing. Absolutely. I think that's definitely one for the future. I think a couple of manufacturers are already looking at that as well at the minute, so that's really interesting.
Brilliant. So there you have it. I want to say a big thank you to Tom for sharing his expertise in medium voltage solutions today. If you're not already following us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, YouTube or Pinterest, you can do so today by searching E-Tech Components. As for our Ask E-Tech series, stay tuned for more first-person insights in the near future.